Okay, we are live. Welcome everybody to another episode of Hymns Weekly. I'm just gonna tweet this out. And Manuel, how's it going? It's been a while since we did this.
Yeah, I'm fine. What about you? Are you at home now?
At home
Finally?
now, I'm gonna be uh, not at home for the next month or so. So probably still traveling for a little while, but at home for this week. Let me just post this. And this is going to be an interesting week, at least for hymns, because we have a decision that's coming up shortly, which I'm sure we're going to get into in this video. Hymns, along with the rest of the market, has seen a decline today as a result of the Fed rate cut, or at least the hawkish comments that they provided. And I mean, it's kind of been flat, man, over the past couple of weeks.
I mean, it can't go up every day.
I mean, I
We
feel like I
needed
was
this.
I feel like I was like lied to. I feel disappointed. I thought that I would buy this and it would immediately go to the moon, and now it's flat for a week. What is this? It's false
Where's my
advertising.
Lambo?
Exactly, exactly. What is going on with this shit stock that just keeps staying flat every day?
I mean, to be honest, I think we really needed this correction
Yeah,
because I mean, IMS is not really correcting that much. This is like a regular day for HIMS,
but
especially
tomorrow,
considering the Unterbrook going short again. I
yes.
mean,
Let,
I, I
let me
I thought it could be way worse, like
let me
coupled
add
with
that to our
the
list.
Powell comments.
I'm going to add
Yeah.
that to our list of topics, a Hunter book, because you had a nice post about that earlier today, which I'd love to chat about. So Hunter Brook, we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Tirzepatide decision. Tevis to show off the bearish argument, and then Morgan Stanley. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about today. I think for hymns, there was a lot of news over the past couple of weeks, and then there was not really a lot of news over the past week or so. It was fairly quiet, and so now it's been a couple of weeks since we had our last episode, so we're probably going to be talking about again. Can you discuss the price you plan to buy more shares again if shortage ends tomorrow? I'm going to bookmark this so that we can get to this question towards the end of the stream, and if anybody has any other questions that they want to ask, definitely ask them and I'll bookmark them, and we can get to them at the end of the stream. So, Manuel, what do you want to start with?
I mean, uh, maybe Unterbrook, as we just talked about it, because I mean, it's not real. I mean, we can link this to Tirzepatide because the
Sure.
short thing is more like something that they heard about Tirzepatide
Sure.
going off shortage. Supposedly, they say that they spoke with a former FDA official, and she said that Tirzepatide is not in shortage anymore, basically. So, according to them, tomorrow the FDA should uh, take Tirzepatide off the shortage list, and so supposedly HIMS would react quite negatively, and I mean they're charting based on that. After like a couple of weeks after they said that they're long on
Yeah.
HIMS.
So let's just get the timeline straight on these guys. So Hunterbrook is essentially a firm, like a fund, and they were short on HIMS over the summer. They said, "Hey, I can't remember why they were short. I know we talked about it
It
before.
was because of GLP-1s, like the compounded versions. They said, "Oh, it's not safe." Like, and then they used the cover of the short report was
Yeah.
like a quote from a customer, a HIMS customer on
Right.
Reddit,
Right.
saying that, "Oh, I felt like I was going to die. I was like laid down in my bed. I could barely move, or something like that." And
Right.
then when you like when I went to see that specific Reddit post, that person said that he or she, I don't remember, took like 2.5 times the recommended dosage, and that's why
Right.
she was having so bad side effects. So I
So
mean,
let me just summarize the timeline, right? So summer of 2024, Hunter Brook came
yeah, it
out.
was in June. I just checked, 27th of June.
So in June of this year, Hunter Brook, this firm, came out and they said, we're short on HIMS because GLP-1's not safe, all this and that. And they took one person's Reddit post out of context because that person had essentially taken way, more than the recommended dose. And they used this to form a bearish argument, a short thesis on HIMS. In the fall, I think a couple of weeks ago, honestly, like
25 November.
so like a month ago, they flipped their decision and they said, "Hey, we're long on HIMS." And now, guess what? A month later, they're short on HIMS again because they think that Tirzepatide is going to come off shortage. And this, I think, summarizes analysts and these funds in a nutshell.
And the thing is, the bulls case, or let's say the reason why they were long like 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
was because of GLP-1s and because of the new because of Trump's choice to lead the FDA, the Dr. Marty Makary or something like that.
Yes.
And it was based on GLP-1s as well. So it really doesn't make sense. Like, nothing changed. I mean, I don't care about what they think, but at least the SEC should keep an eye on these guys, because they flip. They're probably trading HIMS like every month and trying to move the, like, no one cares about them anymore. Like today, the stock like reacted a bit, but it mostly traded based on Powell and his speech. So I don't see these as a huge drop, because I mean, no one cares about Unterbrook anymore. Maybe in a month or so they're going to say, "Oh, we're long again," or they're always, now they're always like writing a warning saying like, "Oh, this position may change at any time."
I mean,
Before, I mean,
it's like the boy who cried wolf, right? Like you're gonna go long and then go short the next week and then go long again the next week and then go short again. Like at some point, people are not gonna care anymore what you do or
exactly.
say because they've been burned on both sides. Whether you're bullish on HIMS, you've been burned by Hunter Brook, and now whether you're bearish on HIMS, you've been burned by Hunter Brook because they flip flop all the time. And I know a lot of people on YouTube make the same mistake. Like Meet Kevin is somebody that's coming to mind where like, he'll flip flop and trade through stocks. And I think a lot of people just take offense to that because I mean, it takes conviction to build up a thesis and actually justify the reasoning of why you're long or why you're short. And if you're flip flopping all the time, then it discounts everything you say because people have no certainty that you are going to hold your commitments or your decision, your justifications for your reasoning.
Exactly. And in my opinion, it just tells that you didn't do your research properly. I mean, if it's because something changed, I
Yeah.
understand, and obviously you can change your opinion. Obviously, if something like regarding your investment thesis changes, it's perfectly normal for you to like move directions. But in this case, they're just flipping sides based on nothing. And I don't know about Meet Kevin or those YouTubers, but what I see a lot is like the sentiment changing based on things that, and with him specifically, like for instance, Amazon, like when Amazon announced the expansion of the telehealth offerings, and we
Yeah.
all knew that that was going to happen, but the market reacted like 25% drawdown or something like that. And essentially, what that tells me is that most people just don't do enough research to build conviction, like were saying, like that conviction that takes to hold a position for the long term. Because most people say they're long term investors, but they're not. It's
Yeah.
easy to say, but not that easy to do, and it takes research to build conviction. You can't borrow conviction, and a lot of people try to do that, especially like in on X and on YouTube. Like, it's not because your favorite YouTuber is long that you have the conviction to go long. You're just going long because he's going long. And when something happens, you just don't know what to do because you haven't done your research, and that's the
Yeah. I
number
mean,
one problem with everyone.
look, at the end of the day, your conviction is going to be made on your research, and your actions are supposed to speak for yourself. And I know that there's a lot of people who will see right through the flip-flopping that Hunter Brook or any other firm or analyst may do, and we've seen quite a few of them, especially in low market cap companies. It is that they can manipulate, or they can flip-flop, or they can change their argument depending on whatever news source. The good part is that many people who do their own research will see right through it because they can counteract the points. The bad part is that there's a lot of people who trust still these large institutions, and the JP Morgans and all of these analysts, and they don't have time to do their own research, and so they'll take them blindly at their word. Like, especially if maybe not HIMS, but for some other stocks that are more large in market cap, like Apple, for example, or
Yeah.
Google. If you're saying, hey, Willow is going to change the game for Google, and I am, 55 years old, a middle manager somewhere working at a logistics company, I'm like, I don't have time to read on Willow. I don't, and so I just trust them because that's supposed to be their job, and that, I think, is a very gray area where a lot of these analysts and hedge funds will take advantage of whatever news piece to create that volatility, or that FUD, I guess, in companies, especially smaller cap companies like HIMS and SoFi. I've seen it repeatedly, and others.
Yeah, and it's kind of easy to. I mean, I wouldn't call it manipulation, but like it's what Bank of America has been doing, like flipping sides based on. And I just saw like the other day the estimates that they're using for the $18 price target, and I mean,
Mhm.
it's ridiculous, to be honest. Even without GLP-1s, like completely excluding GLP-1s, those estimates are like crazy. And 1 month before, the estimate, like the numbers were way higher, and they just, because of Amazon, they just cut them off like crazy. And we don't, I mean, even if Amazon has an impact on IMS, we don't have any information telling us that we should cut our estimates by like 20% or something like that. It's crazy how they change the narrative based on, I wouldn't call it a simple thing, but it's something that you should know it was coming when you made your initial estimates.
At the end
It's-
of the day, stuff like that, I think, is going to be a rite of passage in any investor investing in these individual names. Is whatever stock you're investing in, if it's, I would say under $25 billion market cap, you're going to have, and even higher than that in market cap,
yeah,
like, you're going to have moments where you can have enough information and have done enough research to be able to call bullshit on something that an analyst is saying or a hedge fund is saying, and it will be unfair, but you will be able to realize it, and you just go through. Because I guarantee you right now, for HIMS, the people who are scared of Amazon, or the people who were selling for Amazon, they're already shaken out of the stock. And so now the news cycle is so short for this company, because it's so like fast, that another week passes, another big bad scary monster shows up, and in this case, it's the Tirzepatide shortage. I'm sure in a couple of weeks, whatever the decision is, positive or negative, it'll be something else that it has a giant spotlight on it.
yeah. I mean, I remember even before Amazon. So one day it was because of the CEO talking about Palestine and something like that. The stock
Yep.
suffered for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I mean, there's always something different, especially in the weeks before an earnings report. Always, always, always something. And I mean, probably Tirzepatide is going off shortage. I mean, we can talk about that later.
So
But
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
even if it doesn't, or I mean, to be honest, as I said, I don't care. But I am not expecting the stock price to react that negatively, because I think everyone, or I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people are already expecting that to happen.
Yeah, I'll take the other side of that argument to say it will react negatively because it's a
No, it
volatile.
will for sure. I was just saying it's not going to drop like 20% or something like that.
Oh no, I don't think that, but I definitely think it'll be 10%.
I mean, that's a regular day for it.
I guess. But look, Tirzepatide, semaglutide, all of these, like they're going to come off shortage. It's a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
Like I don't think anybody can argue that. It's a question of time frame. But the fact that you're going to feel that pain, it's the same pain, man. It's like, are you going to feel it this week, or are you going to feel it in 2 weeks, or are you going to feel it in 1 month? You're still going to feel the pain. You know what I'm saying? Because it's an
Yeah.
inevitability that it's going to happen. So, it becomes such a moot point that I think the long term investors in this company can look through and say, okay, well, it doesn't matter if it comes today or if it comes tomorrow. Like it's going to happen, and whatever, it's going to get brushed off. Um, but the people who are short term, who are trading options on this company or who are analysts or whatever you have it, who are playing on the volatility, I think they're the ones who are mostly talking about it because, and this is the thing that I don't like, which is that HIMS trade so closely with the GLP-1 narrative. And so as a result of that, it will get hit disproportionately to what it should realistically get hit.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really like to read the Morgan Stanley note.
Mhm.
They barely talk about GLP-1s. They don't talk about GLP-1s. They just talk about the scalability of the platform and how Hims has been showing impressive growth and being the best company in digital healthcare in terms of track records, and like they're going to compound over the next 2 years at least 30% per year. And they don't talk about GLP-1s. I was very impressed about that. I was like, when I
So
saw the initiation and the $42 price target, I was like, maybe they're betting on GLP-1s or something like that. And when I went to read it, I was very impressed because as we're always talking about, these analysts like don't get hymns normally, most of them.
yeah.
And I was really impressed with Morgan Stanley in this regard.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's good, right? And we need more of that for Hims to actually build, um, a more solid foundation around the bull thesis of this company. But I think that the management and the company fundamentals are going to speak for themselves. They do every single earnings with the growth rates
Exactly.
and the prospects. It's just that people, take that and then cherry pick whatever is good for their narrative and then leverage that to have the volatility for him. So I think that more analysts covering the stock is going to force a wider range of perspectives as to how analysts are seeing this, and that eventually will get us, along with the shortages ending, will get us to seeing hims as more of a hybrid player than just a GLP-1 provider, because there was a time where hims was not a GLP-1 stock
Yeah, yeah. Not too long ago.
not too long
And
ago.
before GLP-1s, in I remember in February I was traveling from Milan to here to Lisbon, and when I landed, I saw that Hims had reported the fourth quarter of last year, yeah, of 2023, and it was the first quarter with the oral weight loss solution, and it was an absolute like success. It was crazy, and they pushed the guidance for 2025 to 2024, which was like 1.2 billion dollars in revenue and 100 million dollars in adjusted EBITDA or something like that. And just see what they're doing right now, and we're still in 2024, and the stock like went up like 30% in a day or even more maybe. And I
Yeah,
was like, okay, this oral solution is crazy. Then GLP-1s came and no one cares about the oral weight
yeah,
loss solution anymore. I mean, not most people, but a lot of people that invest in HIMS don't even know about the oral solution. So I think
yeah,
GLP-1s going off shortage. I mean, I want them to go. I don't want them to go off shortage like as soon as possible, but I don't want the stock to keep trading on GLP-1's news for
yeah,
like a long time. I prefer to, I mean, get rid of it not in a very long time frame, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it just feels at this point that the anticipation of the pain is worse than the pain itself. It's like when you're a kid and you go to the doctor and they're giving you a shot. The worst moment is like the seconds before the shot actually
yeah,
happens because you're like, you're tensing up and you're thinking it's going to be worse than it is. And that's how I feel it is with HIMS and the GLP-1 narrative. Like, they're going to come off shortage. The stock is going to take a hit. Like, it's going to happen, man. And so if you making a big deal around this volatility and how much is it going to go down and this and that, like whether you like it or not, regardless of what you do, like that's going to happen. It's going to pass. And I think people who are invested in the long term for this company are going to see through that and it's going to be fine. Like the world is going to keep spinning the next day. And I think that that's also one of the reasons why, like, it makes me so confident to invest in this stock because the more that I read about it, and the more that I realize, the fact that it's not just a GLP-1 provider and that there's so much more innovation in the company, product growth in the company, growth in general, in the financials of the company, the more comfortable I am to just own, to trade around it. Like I have a core position, but then I'm also doing like options trading around HIMS. Like I have cash secured puts this week for HIMS, and I'm holding those through the decision tomorrow. And I know that I'm probably going to get assigned some shares if it does, fall, which I do think that it's going to come off shortage as well. And I'm going to point to a really interesting article that we can read together. But, I am anticipating bad news tomorrow, and I'm still holding through it in my shares and in my cash secured puts because I want to be owning more shares of this company. And the reason why I'm not like panicking or closing those positions or rolling those positions or doing all of this, like, maneuvering to try to get around that is because I'm confident in the fundamentals of the company and the growth rate of the company and the narrative of the company. And that is the piece where I'm like, oh, wow, like this is a crazy volatile company that I can profit off of, but it's also a really amazing company, fundamentally speaking, that has great prospects, that has a good story, and that has a huge addressable market. And so you find like the best of both worlds because a lot of the times, like the best companies don't have a lot of volatility, and this one does. And so you have opportunities in the short term, but then you also have a lot of opportunities in the long term as well. So it's not going to be a boring ride. It's going to be a very bumpy ride, but not a boring one.
yeah, and there's always catalysts coming. I mean, the optionality of the business is something that, I mean, makes it easy to just to just come with more catalysts, like the menopause treatments, as we talked about, like the hormonal therapy. There are several categories to pursue, even within weight loss. There are several other opportunities besides GLP-1s.
Yeah,
This
man.
is just I mean, in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, no one will even care about that. And I would say that the question here for the market and maybe for institutional investors is whether HIMS is going to offer personalized GLP-1 solutions, like they say,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's the point that institutional investors fear the most, is that HIMS really goes after that path, and like maybe gets threatened by Eli Lilly or by Novo Nordisk legally. And I think I'm not so sure about what's going to happen, but Andrew really seems committed to do that, to sell personalized GLP-1s.
Yeah.
And the acquisition of the 503B pharmacy is a good sign of that. But I really don't know what to think about this. Like, if it's because the bare argument here is that HIMS shouldn't do this because they will get sued and all that because of the patents, and the bull case is that if they can legally do this,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the GLP-1 growth might continue over the next few years. And if that happens, the stock is even cheaper than it is without the GLP-1 growth. And that would be insane. So I don't really know about, like, I can't really have an opinion yet about the reward compensating the risk, because I am not the best person to fully understand the risk here. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the risk is getting sued, but sued to what point? I mean, you can get sued and pay 5 million. You can get sued and pay 500. If I mean, it's not really something that we at least that I can measure yet. So that's I believe that's the main thing that keeps most sharks, let's say, away from him, is the litigation risk. Let's say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I like my main concern is not necessarily, and this is going to be interesting because we're going to chat about this, and it sounds like we're on the same wavelength around Tirzepatide. Because I thought you would have the stance of like, okay, Tirzepatide is not going to come off shortage tomorrow, and it's actually going to be good news for the stock. But everything that, and I guess we're consuming the same content because everything that I'm seeing points me to the other direction. Like if I
Mhm.
had a gun to my head, and this is not financial advice, but if I had a gun to my head that says, hey, you have to either go long or go short tomorrow, I would probably go short tomorrow because I think that the decision is going to go negative and the stock is going to actually take a beating because of it. And we might see $26 a share tomorrow by the end of the day. I do think that.
So
My
go
main
long, guys.
so let's say yeah, go and yeah, opposite Tevis. Yeah, thank you, Manuel. I'm glad that you're also into that joke now too. Thanks. So look, my concern is not necessarily Tirzepatide. I'm looking past that to semaglutide, and if Tirzepatide comes off shortage, the next domino to fall is going to be semaglutide, and when that comes off shortage, like that's the one that's going to actually affect HIMSS more than the decision tomorrow.
Exactly, but I don't think that tirzepatide coming off shortage accelerates semaglutide coming off shortage, because for a long time we knew that Eli Lilly
Mhm.
was like advancing more rapidly in terms of getting the supply chain constraints like fixed and all that. We like they always said that they were closer to do it than Novo Nordisk, and at least in I think yesterday or the other day that semaglutide is still on shortage, like very much on shortage, like in Europe, in Australia, and in other countries. And I mean, being a Danish company and like not as Eli Lilly, a US company, the supply, I mean, the priority supply must not be 100% in the US. I mean, maybe I'm wrong
Yeah.
assuming this, but I would say that I'm confident, or this is not financial advisement, of course,
Hold on, I think I have
but
a banner for this. Hold on.
I'm confident that semaglutide will remain on shortage for a few more months, and that's when semaglutide comes off shortage. That day, I believe HIMSS will like suffer a lot. But Tirzepatide, I think everyone now knows because of all the days that HIMSS fell based on Tirzepatide news, and everyone started to mention HIMSS doesn't sell Tirzepatide, HIMSS sells semaglutide. So I think now everyone is aware of this. If
Yeah.
not everyone,
Well,
like
not everyone.
not everyone, but like 80%, let's say, of people
Sure.
are aware of this. So and when that happens, when semaglutide comes off shortage, if it's like in February, March, even April or May, I think the stock will be higher than this. It obviously depends on the entire market, but we will have like the fourth quarter results, and that should be a good catalyst. And as we discussed, I think last episode, the GLP-1s we are not even nationwide available yet for HIMSS. So the first quarter of 2025 should be like even better than the last two, the previous two. So
Yeah.
I think that that day will be terrible, but we should be trading at higher levels, and so the drop in the price should still be in the 30s. I mean, this is just a wild guess. I mean, don't kill me if it doesn't happen, but I think that Tirzepatide, I think it's going off shortage, as you said. I mean, I'm seeing everything pointing on that direction. But I think that in a couple of weeks, no one will care about that anymore. They will be focused on semaglutide solely.
Yeah. I mean, Tirzepatide going off shortage is bad for the stock. Semaglutide going off shortage is bad for the stock and the company, fundamentally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, at least in the short term, yeah.
Yeah. Let me put this up. This is I'm sure you've definitely read this just as I have. This was by a member of the HIMSS community, and there was a 12-page report. Have you seen this, Manuel?
I saw it, but I didn't read it.
It's pretty well done, actually. So it's by a member of the HIMSS community talking about the FDA decision and explaining why they think that tirzepatide is likely to come off shortage this week. And then this is the interesting thing. I think there's a 50% chance the same thing happens with semaglutide either this week or next, which is interesting because nobody really knows when semaglutide
Because
is going to come off.
I just said the the
Well,
contrary.
you just said like April or March, and then this guy thinks next week, and so I don't know. It could be anything in between that time frame, I guess. But here's the reason why. I want to read some of this, and then I also had Grok summarize some of the main points just for this show. Okay, because this is like a full-on like 12-page report.
Yeah, I saw. That's why I didn't read it. It was very long when I mean, I bookmarked it, but I haven't read it yet.
Well, you're going to have a chance right now. So essentially, the reason is contextual historical knowledge on how the FDA operates in previous cases of the similar nature. And there's a couple of main bullet points here around what the main summary is. So to summarize that, I will go over to Grok, and Grok analyzed this document for me and put up the main points in a very, very digestible way. So let's do this. Okay. The main points from this long document. So the author believes that there's a majority chance that tirzepatide is coming off shortage based on FDA history, production data from Lilly and Novo. FDA politics. So the FDA under the current administration is seen as pro-pharma and potentially hostile to compounders. The incoming administration stance is uncertain, but the current leadership might want to resolve shortages before leaving office because they're essentially all, we get a new administration coming in January. FDA concerns with compounding. So the FDA has significant safety concerns about compounded drugs, heightened with GLP-1s due to past incidents and regulatory measures to ensure drug safety. Legal tactics. So in the past, when they have had a delay, it's been strategic so that they can go back and gather more data to strengthen their position. And actually, in the past, with FDA cases, a delay has not led to a change in stance, but actually a strengthening in the same stance. So there's some historical precedent here in terms of how the FDA operates in similar cases. And then in terms of production from other competitors, so Eli Lilly and Novo, respectively, both companies report an increase in production and an end to shortages, with demand potentially decreasing due to insurance coverage issues, which could resolve the shortage. This one, I think, was the most interesting point that I found. Real-time data from Amazon and user reports suggest that tirzepatide is widely available, while semaglutide availability is more variable, but still suggests a potential end to shortages. Moving on, there's a couple more points here. Localized supply chain shortages. So shortages at pharmacies are attributed to supply chain issues and business decisions rather than a lack of national supply, suggesting the shortage might be resolved. The short position, I mean, this is kind of speculative at this point, saying that HIMSS has a high short interest, which it always has had, but even higher than normal, suggesting some insider knowledge. I don't really subscribe to that point particularly. So, yeah, I found this point interesting, that saying that basically shortages started in the Biden administration, and they won't want to leave office with the shortages still on. They'll want to wrap that up. And, essentially, if Trump decides to have his administration open up the shortages again, they can. But for the individuals in the current administration, they want essentially a closed loop of, hey, we'll finish what we started and taking off shortage what we initially put on shortage 4 years ago or however, or no, a couple years ago. And that's it. Chances of another delay, I think this will be seen as bullish if there is another delay, although that's not going to be very likely. In previous,
they're not going to take it off. They're not going to say, "Oh, yeah, it's on shortage," whether they take it off or they delay it. That's the only two scenarios I would say.
Well, I don't think that's going to be delayed again because it was already
I don't
delayed.
think either. I was
Yeah.
just saying like that's I only see those possibilities. They're not going to say, "Yeah, we're keeping it on shortage for a long time." I mean, no, that's not going to happen. If someone
So,
thinks that, I mean,
what do you make of those arguments? Saying that FDA
can
is
you put them like on the screen again,
sure. I'll
and
pull
I tell you my opinion about each like very quickly
up. Okay, cool.
because I was thinking.
So, FDA being uh, or having safe. Or sorry, let's go here. Da, da, da. FDA politics. Current
I mean,
administration being pro pharma, hostile to compounders. We've seen this before. We know
yeah,
that people
that's
coming in are
nothing
going to be
new.
more friendly to compounders, but they're not in power yet, and that I think is the main point.
I think that argument is not really relevant because it has always been that. Like last month, it was the same, so it's not the best argument.
Yeah,
The same for the next one. I mean, we knew that.
yeah, it's been status quo for a while, right?
Yeah, the that one is okay. I understand. Yeah, it has a solid point. I mean,
I think these are the
I
strongest arguments.
um uh, yeah. I mean,
I mean, I guess
yes.
the three of these, right?
The third one, I think it's kind of because they say that the shortages are attributed to also business decisions. I think
Mm,
that's bullshit. I think that's something that the Eli Lilly CEO said in the last earnings call, that they're like slowing demand on purpose, and that's why they missed by almost $1 billion the GLP-1 revenue estimates. I think that was just like to try to say to the market like we're not on shortage. Even if
right,
they are, you would try to seem that they aren't, if you
right.
understand what I mean. But
Because
yeah, the other two, I mean, if
because
that's really the case, like the data from Amazon and all that, I mean, I can't say if it's true or not, but I believe
yeah,
those ones are solid.
on this point, just very quickly, for the sake of the audience, basically it's to the benefit of Eli Lilly to say that the shortage is over, because they're the only ones that benefit from the shortage being over because the compounders are,
Exactly.
not benefiting.
They want to monopolize Tirzepatide essentially.
Exactly. Record short positions. Do you think shorts will double down on this decision, or what do you think?
I'm not sure. I think it will depends on the initial reaction, maybe. Like I know that the question is kind of relates to that, like to the reaction, but I think that um hymns a lot of times hymns like reacts very rapidly in a way and then recovers quite fast, and then
Right.
like has like a that typical hymns volatility, and ends up rebounding um, quite nicely.
Hmm.
So, to be honest, I'm not really sure about that.
I think that shorts will look for any reason that they possibly can to
Yeah,
go in
that's true.
deeper and double their, because like look, you
The
would
short
imagine
interest is already super high.
super high. Not only that, but like when Hims first hit $30 and people are like, oh, this is getting away. What do we get? We got some negative news that brought it right down into the high teens even, with Amazon and the Bank of America thing, and like I think you're always going to have more FUD because there's more short interest, and those two things work hand in hand. And so, as a result of that, when the stock goes up, I don't necessarily see shorts covering as much as they should. I see shorts like doubling down and digging their heels in to a large degree. It's only when it's clear that hey, this thing is going only in one direction because the underlying company is executing, that the shorts start to slowly peel off. I think it's going to be I think the short interest for Hims is going to stay on higher for longer than what we're expecting.
Yeah, I think at least a couple of quarters, because I mean we still need a long time to know if Amazon is going to take any effect on HIMS. Even like here, it's besides GLP-1s. I think most bears that are bearish on IMS because of GLP-1s, they have like the plan B, which is okay, even if IMS is successful without GLP-1s, no, it's not, because Amazon is coming and they will kill HIMS. I think
Right.
Amazon is like the plan B of the, I feel like it's like the plan B of the bears. Or there are also some bears that don't even know HIMS, and they also don't care about GLP-1s, and they're just like, oh, Amazon is one of the best companies in the world. No one wants to compete with Amazon. Be careful, Amazon will kill him. I would never invest in a small company that is competing with Amazon, or
Right.
something like that. I think there's like the two types of bears: the ones that are bears just because Amazon exists and they just don't know anything about the two companies in that regard, and the bears that are bears because first it's just a GLP-1 stock according
Mhm.
to them, and GLP-1s are going to end soon. But and then they have the plan B, which is Amazon, and then in my opinion, there's not much to think in terms of bear arguments than that.
It's just a matter of time frame, right? Because there's people who are long term bearish on HIMS because of Amazon, and you
Yeah,
need to give years for that narrative to play out. And then there's people who are like trading. I buy it this week and I sell it in 2 weeks or
yeah,
whatever.
that's why Amazon is the plan B. Because if in the short term GLP-1s prove to impact the stock price but not the company itself, then okay, Amazon will. So
Yeah,
I'm still on track to my bear thesis.
but that second group of people will never even be still here to see the results of Amazon. They're just
Yeah,
trading on purely the news and the fear in the market. And so, I don't pay too much attention to it. Um, but at the same time, we will see a lot. And I guess for the people watching, be prepared. The moment that Tirzepatide comes off shortage, what you're going to see is you're going to see probably an article or an analyst or something negative also come out about HIMS. How now that Tirzepatide is off shortage, that their price target has changed and they're moving it downwards, because it always happens with news of this sort. Is the negativity piles on and the fear just starts building, and so that drop, you know, let's just say that by 20% of the HIMS investors out there, I'm being very generous, okay? 20% have already priced in that Tirzepatide is coming off shortage. The rest are like, they're not as into the news as we are. Everybody's going to get affected by that negative emotional reaction that not only the stock is going to have, but all the subsequent negativity in the media is going to, like, they're going to cover it. Analysts are going to downgrade it, so on and so forth, because it always happens.
yeah, and we're still far from having like an earnings report or a catalyst like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we might very well come and fill the gap. Like we have a gap here at $25. I mean, that could easily be filled like tomorrow or something like that. So
That is
I mean,
true. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you're investing or thinking about investing in HIMS, just be prepared. That's that's all what we can say. Like, be prepared to filter out the noise and be prepared to embrace the volatility. Because as we talked, like several times, this is really a roller coaster. And it's not because of fundamentals, because if you check fundamentals, it's a straight line up, no volatility. But the
Yeah.
stock's price is just crazy. And I mean, it's not for everyone. If you don't like volatility, just go and search for other opportunities. But if you want
So
to invest in him, build conviction.
absolutely. Like, okay, I have two questions here bookmarked. I'll ask this one first, and then I'll ask the price. Time to buy or give it a few days? I think we're both in the same opinion on this one.
What's your opinion?
Of course, it depends on how long you plan on holding and what your circumstances are. I would say that if you're bullish on the decision, buy half in the morning and then half on Friday, because the decision might be good and you're leaving some money on the table if it goes up. I personally think the decision is going to be bad, so I would probably wait until it comes out and then buy afterwards because you might get a good discount.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think the decision is not going to be good.
Hmm.
And after today's correction, I'm not expecting a huge correction. I know that a lot of people are, but I'm not expecting like something crazy. I think this is just a healthy correction of a bull market. I might be wrong, of course, but I think that especially after today, if we get a bad decision tomorrow, we could easily drop a few more bucks. So yeah,
Hmm.
I don't know if you want to hold it for years. It's still a good price, as we always say. I mean, it's like 25 times free cash flow or something like that, or free cash flow of next year, and it has an insane growth. So fundamentally, for me, it's not expensive by any means, and it's a good price for the long term. But if in terms of weeks or so, I'm expecting to see volatility. Yeah, definitely.
I won't pull this up. More than likely, they push the decision with the new administration coming in January. I think this is like a very optimistic take of them being like, "Hey, you guys are completely going to change." And this is what I hate about politics is that like I hate that number one, the feedback loop is so long that 4 years feel like in this day and age where news is so fast, 4 years feels like such a long time to wait. And then the other thing that I hate is that whenever administration is changed, the first thing that they do is they revert back all the changes that the old one made. It's like, guys, we can never make progress because you just go like back and forth every 4 years. Um, I think that's a very like optimistic stance that okay, well, they're going to push it back. I think they're going to want to close the loop on the shortages. And then they say, okay, our hands are clean. We open the shortages, we close the shortages, we solve the problem, guys. The problem that they created, but still, it's a
Yeah,
win.
I understand your point, but what you said now, like they didn't create the problem, so I don't see that as a huge argument. Like they want to close the loop of the shortage and say that they're solved. I mean, because in the end, it doesn't depend on them, and that's why what they're saying. Like with the delay, for instance, they said we need to gather data to understand this. It's not something that they know and not something that they can control. So I don't see that as being a good reason for them to to do it. But I understand the point. I think it's reasonable to think about it, but is I mean it's not something that really makes 100% sense to me. If you
I mean, look, if I wanted to take credit for something, like take credit for the shortages ending under my administration or under my watch, then I could go that route. And a lot of people are not as informed to understand the details, and they say, okay, well, yeah, they did end under your watch, so good job. And I understand that it's not the FDA's like decision or whatnot, but it's still a little check mark that they can have. Or the other side is that, hey, if I want to not do my homework essentially and not do any research and I can leave all of it to the other guy that comes into the office because I'm like, okay, I'm on my way out and I'm half out of the door already. I'm not going to it's like your last 2 weeks of work. You're not going to do any work, you know?
Yeah, but if you think about it, like people, what they care is if they can like get access to the drug. So being on the shortage list or not, first being on the shortage list means that more people can access the drug. Because
Yes.
if you think about it, you only have compounded versions because of that. So taking Tirzepatide off the shortage list in the end will arm the consumer if there's no shortage, and also if there's a shortage, because there's always the price differences, and that's the main problem with the data that they gather. As I said, like the HIMSS GLP-1 tracker is bullshit. Is something that anyone can go there and say that they're like in California or whatever, they
Yeah. There's
can't
no
have
risk.
access.
Yeah.
Even me in Portugal, I can go there and say that I'm from California and that I can have no access. And then the thing is, there's much more demand for HIMSS GLP-1s because of the price. Like a lot of people don't want GLP-1s at $1,000 per month, but a lot of people want at 200 or 300. That's why I think this situation is so complicated to access for FDA, and why I think it's not really black or black or white decision. But yeah, I mean, I understand your point on this.
Let's get to our other question. Can you discuss the price you plan on buying more shares again if shortage ends tomorrow? I think I already know your answer to this because you've
Yeah,
mentioned this in the past, where you're not buying any more shares, your position is built out.
yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything that changes that?
No, not really. I would only consider trimming it, to be honest, but I don't want to do it because
Yeah,
it's already a huge position in my portfolio, and I have no spare cash. I had a bit, but I already used it. And if I want to buy something, which I want in some way, like I am always researching new companies. So as I only have like four, I always I'm always wanting to get money from somewhere, but I never want to trim a winner, especially with him.
yeah,
But that's why I'm not buying anymore. So I have other companies that I want to buy, and I have no cash, so I would never use the if I get any cash for some reason, I'll not be using it on HIMS, which is already like a 30% position to in my portfolio. So
that makes sense. Yeah, I get that.
my average cost is pretty good. So I already raised it significantly when I bought more at $16, like after Q2. Yeah, Q2 results. So yeah, I'm fine now.
I, on the other hand, would be happy to own more shares in the low $20 range, and then buy more if we fall into the teens, because I don't have like Hims. Well, actually, now that Hims is at $30, it's uh, like 10% of my portfolio, which is it's getting
Considerable.
a big position. Yeah. But
I'm proud of you.
thank you. But I'm happy to buy more. Like, I think if we fall tomorrow and those cash secured puts get assigned at $26, then I'll own more at $26. Um, so, but I'm buying a portion where it's like, hey, this is my long term position. I don't want to touch this, especially because this is very volatile and it could very easily get hit. And then there's another portion where it's like, hey, this is my short to medium term position. And if there's some volatility, then I'm going to be writing call options against that. And if it gets called away, then it gets called away, and I take the profit and I take the premium. And I say thank you very much. I'm happy with it. So that's how I'm thinking about it. I have it in multiple different portfolios, and they have different functions in those portfolios, and that keeps me from making any emotional decisions to see like, oh my gosh, Hims hit $35 a share. I don't get FOMO because I know that, hey, I have it in this other portfolio, and I'm not afraid to buy more in there as well. But yeah, I think for my long-term position, I think low 20s, high teens, I'd be happy to buy a lot more. And then for my short to medium term portfolio, I think even like mid 20s or high 20s, if I get assigned, are good. But Hims, I've been writing uh, puts on Hims for like selling puts, not buying puts on Hims for several weeks now, and so I've been just gathering capital that way. Where I've done it on $28, I've done it on $30 last week, and it's been doing fine, right? So we'll see 26 this week. Let me bring up this question because we were going to talk about this. So maybe you want to take the lead on this one, Manuel.
Oh yeah, about Row. So for those who don't know about it, Row is like a competitor, a HIMS competitor. They're essentially the same as HIMS, but without the personalization and all that. They're just a direct to consumer prescription compounder, whatever you want to call it. And last week they announced a partnership with Eli Lilly to essentially integrate the Lilly Direct, which is the direct to consumer websites from Eli Lilly that they created like a couple of months ago. I remember that day because IMS dropped considerably again. And now they're going to, I think, from what I understood, they're going to integrate the parts of the platform that offers the GLP-1s in Row and offer the original GLP-1 through Row directly, to streamline the access to the treatment. Let's say, at least that's what they say. Yeah, exactly. I was reading that. Um,
Yeah, complete end-to-end experience on a single platform, allowing patients to receive diagnoses and a prescription for Zepbound and have vials of the drug delivered to their homes. That sounds like a pretty good deal, honestly.
yeah, it's it's a good move by Row, let's say. But this tells me something. This tells me first that Lily Direct by itself it is not working. Like, if it was working, I mean, yeah, it increases the awareness, but it's not working in a meaningful way. And so they're trying
Why?
to,
Why?
because if it was, I mean, they wouldn't need Row. I mean, because
No,
they're
but like,
giving a part of the profits to Row. They already, like, to launch Lily Direct, they decreased the prices of GLP-1s. So it
yeah.
was kind of
So
a way of supplying cheaper options. And now they're even giving a cut to Row. So they're
so that,
trying
that's my
to.
question. What's not working with Lilly? Is it their consumer website?
I mean, I have no idea, but
Or is it
probably
the
they're not
price?
selling, because at first it's still considerably more expensive than Hims and other compounders. I
Hmm.
think that's the main reason. Because yeah, it's cheaper, but those who want something cheaper than the original version, and that's still the original version, they just go to Hims or other compounders. If
Hmm.
you pay 1,000, you can, or if you pay 600, I'm not sure. I think it's 500 or 600 per month, or even a bit more. You can also pay 1,000. I mean, yeah, it's considerably cheaper, but it's not like Hims that it's offering like 80% or 90% discounts. Yeah, it's exactly, it's 500. But yeah, it depends on the dose. But it's
Insane.
first, it's considerably more expensive than Hims. And then I think this is kind of, this could be Eli Lilly saying that Hims, like, watch out, we're partnering with your competitors, like, we don't like you, so
I mean,
please don't do personalized GLP-1s or something like that. I don't see it as a big deal, to be honest.
it's absolutely silly because like you have Eli Lilly who is offering this for $1,000, where you just pay $1,000 and you get like this. I think it's single dose, um, and then you have this partnership with Row that they're like, hey, now it's going to be $400 to $500 a month, and that's like
Sorry.
half the price. And meanwhile, Hims is doing this for $99 a month.
No, it's not 99. 99 is
It is
for
the service people, right?
no, yeah, for service people, exactly.
So what's it normally? 150 or something like that?
No, it depends on the
Dosage, right?
on the months. Like, if it's 1 month, I think it's like 300 and something or so. But if it's like 12 months, it's 2,400, so it's 200 per month.
So it's still half of the price that Row is doing it. So yes, it's a step in the right direction, I guess, with this partnership from an affordability perspective, but it's still not comparable from just a price perspective with what Hims is offering right now.
Yeah, and Row is also selling compounded versions of GLP-1s, and um, also much cheaper, like Hims. And with those versions, they have pretty good margins. And by selling the original versions through this partnership, they're getting very low margins. So this also tells me that Row is probably not selling as much GLP-1s as they were expecting. Let's say,
Mhm.
maybe I'm wrong by assuming this, but yeah, they might want to expand the access, and even to partner with a big player to uh, have an extra layer of safety, let's say, that Hims doesn't have. But
Mhm.
I think that, for instance, I think Hims wouldn't agree to do this while the shortage is while Tirzepatide is still on shortage. I think HIMS will only look to sell branded GLP-1s after they can't sell the compounded versions. But I can be wrong. Either way, I don't think this is relevant to HIMS. What I like about this, not about this, but about Row specifically. I don't know if, because you were not an investor in HIMS, but in 2022, Row was valued at $7 billion, like in the private market,
Okay.
$7 billion, and
Like
HIMS
more
is
more than what Hims is right now, basically.
exactly. That was one of my bull cases when I bought HIMS in the single digits. It was
Right.
trading at price to sales ratio like 4 times or 5 times less than Row. And
Right.
and I think Row had like, I'm not really sure about, let me confirm, like the revenue they had, but it was insane. Like, and it's really a good comparable to HIMS. It's, I think it's probably the company, if you check their website and all that, they have
They're
also a good like layout and branding, and they're doing a good job.
right.
They just lack the personalization and the maybe the a few aspects of the technology and all that. But if in 2022 Row was valued at $7 billion, just that just tells me, if you apply that multiple to HIMS, and maybe on that time we had huge multiples, so it's not really the best proxy, but still HIMS would be valued at like $20 billion or something like that, which
It's
is huge.
interesting because they're not a public company. They're a private company, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
I wonder, if they would go public at some point over the next, 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, they could take advantage of these bull markets, because
Because then
we
you would
we
have
still haven't seen that much IPOs. We're not
not
still
yet,
on that phase.
not yet. Yeah, but my point is that if Roe does choose to go public over the next year or 2 years, at that point you can have a more direct comparable to Hims than a lot of the
Yeah,
comparisons that people are making right now.
yeah, exactly. Like that's something that we miss, let's say. It's that, and that's why valuing hymns is so challenging, let's say. You can apply uh 20 times multiple free cash flow, you can apply a 15, you can apply a 30, you can apply 40, and you can justify all of them. And I understand, but don't agree when someone say that 15 times multiple is fair or something like that. But you can argue, and you have good reasons to say whatever you want to say. You can even justify a 30 times multiple or a 40 times, as I said. So having similar companies in the market would be helpful in that way. And if Row continues to have like these kind of multiples as they had,
Mhm.
it should be probably positive for him.
Have you ever looked into LifeMD?
Yeah, I had, to be honest, and I think they're quite cheap, but I don't want to. This is like such a crowded space, and I mean, we're always asking. We know, but like everyone is always asking about him's mode, and about like him's being an easy to replicate business and all that. So I think that going for a smaller player, which clearly is easy to replicate, it would
Hmm.
be much riskier, let's say. But I think that the valuation is very attractive, and that's why I took a look at them. Like I saw the multiples, and I was really amazed. But they also offer like primary care. They have like a subsidiary, I think, or a different segment, which is like a docu sign for doctors. So it's not really 100% comparable, but I
Right.
think, yeah, it's kind of cheap, but not a stock that I would hold with conviction for 5-10 years, like I'm expecting to do with Hims.
So you don't own it. You don't want to own it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But I understand why would someone buy.
Yeah, but you're bullish on it.
I mean, I'm bullish on the space, and I'm bullish on not on the space like for the sake of just the space, but just the fact that the valuation is super. They have like 90% gross profit margins, and they're
Hmm.
trading at less than one time. Like the last time I checked, they were trading at less than one time sales.
Right.
So it was really something that I thought could be attractive.
Yeah, that I mean that sounds interesting. But um, last question, and then because I know we're over, I don't know if somebody has asked, but what is your fair value for hymns?
Hmm.
I
That's
mean,
I mean
I
I
have a
just
little question.
I just kind of answered that. I just said that you can justify a fair value whatever like you want. You can justify $40 fair value, you can justify a $30 fair value, you can justify a $25 fair value. You cannot justify Bank of America's $18 fair value.
Yeah,
But
I fair value
I
also
would
depends on.
point like I would point to around $40, something like that, maybe. But not something that I pay attention to because every quarter him's value increases, and that's what I want to see. I don't look at him's like what's its fair value today. I mean, I would look at it because if we went to $50 next week, I would think, okay, maybe this is a bit stretched. I would
Mhm.
maybe trim it a bit just to raise cash for other positions because it's already huge in my portfolio. But I
Mhm.
don't really pay attention to that. I've never built a DCF model for HIMS, and in the day I have to do it, it will be a very sad day because it means that it's not that cheap anymore and it's
Yeah,
not growing like it is. And essentially, I do that. I think about that for every position I own. If I need to build a DCF model to say that the company is cheap, it's because it's not that cheap and it's not really worth holding for a long time.
yeah. I also think that it's like it's not the right way of valuing a company like Hims because it's growing so incredibly quickly that the story changes, from quarter to quarter, let alone year to year, in terms of what the value is. Like you have this company that's like, I mean, what they're projected to grow over 90% next quarter. You can't really DCF that, man. It's not like I'm doing a
Yeah,
DCF on, I don't know, like Allstate Insurance or something, like on Coca Cola. Like this is a company
you
is
can't really forecast the free cash flows of HIMS. If you
exactly.
had that's this is something I always say. If I had built a DCF model when I entered in HIMS,
Hmm.
my estimate of free cash flow for 2030 would already be achieved in 2024.
Exactly.
Literally. I
Exactly.
mean, and this I'm not kidding because when I started like my position, Hims wasn't even profitable. Like even I think not even in adjusted EBITDA. It was really far from getting to profitability. The fundamentals improved like insanely fast, and I think yeah, of course they're not going to keep like improving at the same pace, obviously, but we're not seeing any signs of the execution slowing down.
Right.
So that's essentially every time someone asks me, I always say that if I had built my position based on what I believe to be the today's fair value or something like that, I would already have like when it's went up like because it went all the way down to $2.70, then it went all the way back up to $10 and to 6 or 7 or something like that. When it went to $10, I would already say that okay, this is the fair value, so maybe let's just call it a day or something like that. But in
Right.
the end, if you just look at the execution, you would say, I mean, every quarter they're doing more than I thought they were going to do. And this keeps happening when we made the coverage of the last earnings report. I mean, yeah, we were expecting a pretty good quarter, but they always deliver more. And I mean, yeah, the day it stops happening, I will be the first one to say, yeah, it's still a good company or not, whatever. But yeah, as long as they keep doing what they do, I'm not worried about that.
I think that's a perfect spot for us to end on. Everybody look out for the. Oh, what time can people expect the decision tomorrow?
Last time it was
Like around
pretty
2.
late.
Yeah. It's like around
Yeah,
2 o'clock or so last time.
I have it here. Yeah, it was at uh 2 or 3, maybe even 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was at 3 something, like right, like in the last hour of the market, basically. But I
So
mean, it can happen before.
yeah, yeah. Um, at some point tomorrow, I don't think
Yeah,
this is a good time. At some point tomorrow, if you look at your chart and you see HIMS is down 10, 15, 20%, you know that the
you
decision
already know what happened.
you know why. And I mean, look, don't be afraid, don't be shaken out. Like I said before, there will be negative coverage, there will be a lot of FUD. There's going to be people that are saying this is going back to 15, you're going to lose your money, so on and so forth. All of that is just noise. And yes, if the decision is pushed back again, this thing is going up, baby. We are going back over $30 and probably much higher than that. So we're going to take a look to see what the decision is tomorrow. Again, just to recap, both Manuel and I think that the decision is going to be negative. In other words, that Tirzepatide is going to come off of shortage and the stock could see a tumble. But even if it does, we're still both long. We're still both very bullish on the company. And we will see you all maybe next week, maybe in a couple of weeks. But
Maybe, yeah.
thanks.
Depends on what happens.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If we need to do an emergency session, then we will absolutely do that. But thanks everybody for watching, for being here, and have a good rest of your night. And we'll see you tomorrow.
See you guys.